Hi, in this video we're going to go over a couple of advanced scheduling topics for Housatonics Project Plan 365. We're going to cover a couple of topics including critical path and adding materials to your project plan. In a previous video, we defined the activities required for the completion of our project. In order to see the duration and finish date of our project, we'll show you the Show Project Summary Task option. This way you don't need to create the task on the first level, and this corresponds to the project task that is currently by default in Project Plan 365. The project task summarizes all tasks in the project. As you view the project tasks, check the Show Project Summary task under File, Options, and Advanced. Once we press OK, you'll notice that the project summary task will be displayed. It has an ID of 0 and is the root of the work breakdown structure. The project task has assigned by default the name of the project. In the following, I'll refer to the critical path of a project. First of all, what is a critical path and why is it important? The critical path is a set of tasks that must be completed on schedule for the project to be completed on time. With every project you deal with, it is important to know which is the critical path, so you know which tasks cannot be delayed without affecting the entire project plan. If any task is on the critical path and it's late, the whole project is late. A critical task may be defined as a task that must be completed on schedule for the project to finish on time, and therefore an analysis based on the critical path might be essential for the success of your project. To demonstrate this, I'm going to open a sample plan. To see the critical path of this project, I'm going to click on the Project tab and the critical path icon. You notice a change in the right side of the Gantt chart. Tasks that are on the critical path will be shown in red. In our case, only one task called Install Ceiling Tile is part of this critical path. But things can change regarding tasks that are on the critical path, meaning that some changes in the schedule may affect it. For instance, if we decide that we no longer need the Must Finish On constraint for the Install Ceiling Tile task, you'll notice that more tasks become part of the critical path. And to remove this constraint, I'm going to open the Task Information dialog under the Advanced tab, and I'm going to change the constraint type to as soon as possible. Now that I've done this, you can see that the constraint icon in the indicators column is no longer shown, and now more than one task is displayed in red as being critical. Notice also the new duration and finish date of the project resulted from the deletion of the constraint. Aside from this visual method of flagging critical tasks in red, you can also filter so that Project Plan 365 shows you in the left task grid which are critical tasks. To see the critical tasks, go to the project menu and press on Filter. From here we'll select Critical. By doing this, the Gantt chart shows only the tasks that are critical. This method is especially useful in case of large projects when it's difficult to quickly spot the tasks that are colored in red. To see a whole list of tasks from our project, click on the Filter option again and select All Tasks. The critical path methodology identifies the paths of tasks most likely to impact the project completion date. Early start represents the earliest date an activity can possibly begin, and early finish represents the earliest date an activity can possibly finish. Now to see the values for these two fields, let's add the early start and early finish fields to the current table. and we can analyze delays to the schedule. To insert them, select the column, click on the Format menu, click Insert Column. We'll add Early Start and Early Finish. Late finish represents the latest date an activity can finish without delaying the finish of the project. Likewise, late start represents the latest an activity can start without affecting the planned project finish date. You can quickly see these fields in the Gantt chart view by applying the schedule table. Another field of interest which is displayed in this table is total slack. Total slack is the amount of time a task can be delayed before the project finish date is delayed. Total slack can be positive or negative. A positive slack indicates the amount of time that the task can be delayed without delaying the finish date. If a total slack is a negative number, it indicates the amount of time that must be saved so that the project finish date is not delayed. In our case, you can see we only have positive values for the total slack. In Project Plan 365, critical tasks are defined to have a total slack of 0 days or less, while non-critical tasks are defined to be any task that has a total slack greater than 0 days or is complete. Now we will switch to the entry table, which is the default Gantt chart, and hide the two columns Early Start and Early Finish because we'll no longer need them. Now we'll press on the Critical Path button under the Project menu, since we'll no longer need to see the critical path. To establish the list of activities involved in our project, we can set a deadline for some tasks. A deadline is a target date indicating when you want a task to be completed. If you remember, in a previous video we imposed a must finish on constraint, which is an inflexible constraint, to mark that we wanted our task to end by a particular day. Keep in mind that setting the finish date can lock up the schedule in ways we don't want. Instead, if you just need a reminder, you can use the deadline field. Let's suppose we want to track the deadline for a task called Install Ceiling Tile. You can open the task information, and on the Advanced tab, you can click Deadline. For this example, let's select October 11th, 2016 as our deadline. Once a deadline is set, it shows up in the Gantt chart as a green arrow marking the deadline. If the finish date of a task passes the task deadline, a warning icon will be shown in the Indicators column. For the task called Pour Column Piers and Foundations, let's set a deadline of July 24th. As you can see, there's now an indicator that informs that the task has gone past its deadline. You can also add the deadline field in the task sheet by inserting a column from the Format menu and adding deadline. After the planning phase of the project is completed, you are ready to get started. Sometimes you may not start right away. There may be some delay, or there's a budget cut, or you cannot start the schedule as planned. What you should do now is shift the schedule. Since we want our deadlines to be dynamically adjusted, we will use the Move Project option. If your project moves a month, you want your deadlines to move a month. The Move Project option allows you to adjust the start and finish dates for all tasks based on the new project start date. Now, to move the project so that it starts on this new date, we'll go to the Project menu and we'll select Move Project. Once we do this, a dialog will show up here. We're going to go ahead and move it up a couple of months to November 25th. Notice we also have the option to move our deadlines as well. We'll leave that checked. Notice how this affects our schedule. As you can see, the deadline dates moved along with our project, so the deadline for Install Ceiling Tile was not missed. An important phase in project planning is the management of resources. So it's meaningful to carefully define the available resources. Each task requires the use of human resources and/or materials to do the work. Resources can be people, equipment, materials, or services that are needed to complete various tasks. Resources are typically people included in your project plan, whether or not they are assigned to tasks. The whole project plan really starts when you've added resources and tasks are assigned to them, like in our building construction schedule. Before we begin to assign resources, it's recommended to enter all the resource information for our project at once by creating a resource list. This will save time when assigning resources to tasks. To add resources in our project, we'll use the Resource Sheet view. Click on Resource Sheet from the left view bar. So far we have no resources added into our project, so nothing is viewable in our table view. So let's go ahead and add a couple. Let's go ahead and type the resource name General Management. Let's add Project Management. And we'll add Steel Erection Management. You can resize the resource name column by dragging the bar. A resource sheet will contain 3 resources now, one at each row. Another possibility for inserting resources into the project is to use the Insert option under Resource. Let's go ahead and select the second row in the resource sheet and select the Insert option. You notice that the newly added resource is inserted above the selected row. The newly added resource also has the name New Resource. So let's go ahead and change this to Roofing Management. Project Plan 365 supports 2 types of resources: work and material resources. The work resources are the most useful, since they are the ones that will burn effort and represent the people required to complete the tasks in a project. So far, we've added only work resources to our project, and you can see that indicated in the type column. However, a resource could also include something that is used to complete a project, including equipment and other materials. Material resources are time independent and should refer to materials that are consumed by the project and can cover anything from single bricks to sacks of mortar, licenses, or hardware for a server. The default value for an inserted resource is work type. On the last row, we're going to type concrete here. And from the type column, we're going to change this to material. Let's go ahead and add another material resource, and we'll call this painting material. Aside from adding a single resources in the resources list from the project, we also have the possibility of inserting multiple resources at a time, as in the case of tasks. And to achieve this, we simply select multiple resources by using the Shift key and then clicking on the Insert option. As you can see, all the inserted resources have the new resource name and will be of type work. The number of inserted resources will be equal to the number of selected rows. In this case, it was 3. I can go ahead and replace these names to fit our needs. This top one, let's change it to Elevator Management. Second one here we'll call Plumbing Management. And for our last one, let's call it Electric Management. As in the case of tasks, during entering resources in the project, we can use Undo or Redo under the Task tab. Likewise, we can use Delete from the Resource menu. Or we can cut, copy, or paste from the Task menu. We can also copy from external sources, such as a CSV file, instead of having to type the resource names by hand. Let's suppose we have this CSV file, and we want to copy a resource from here. Simply select copy, select the next open resource slot, and we will paste. You can use this method to quickly insert a list of resources by copying and pasting from external sources. This is especially useful if you have a large project with a lot of resources that must be added in your schedule. You can also enter other related information to a resource, such as initials, email address, codes, or group. Now let's specify an email address for the resource called Project Management. Select Project Management, select Resource Information, and in the email field we will type an email address. This information can also be handy for materials. For example, we can enter a label here to indicate a ton of concrete or a gallon of paint. This concludes our video covering advanced scheduling topics for Housatonics Project Plan 365. Thanks for watching.